Hi guys, my name is Stephanie and you're highly welcome to my YouTube channel. So in this video I'll be sharing with you guys how I made this beautiful flare gown with turtleneck. So if that's what you're interested in, keep watching the video and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Okay, so guys, the green flare dress is actually the outfit I copied to make the peach one, okay? And for this project, I need 3 yards of this peach fabric to make this flare dress. I have 3 yards of this beautiful peach fabric, and I also have a matching thread I'll be using and other materials. And this button, see how beautiful it is. This button that I'll be using at the back, because the flare dress is not actually going to have a zipper at the back, okay? So let's get right into this video. So the first thing I did was to open up my fabric and then I folded it into 2. I folded all the 3 yards of the peach fabric into 2. I folded it into 2, and then from that edge, from this pointed edge, I'm still going to fold it again into 2, making it to be 4. So guys, what I basically did was to fold my fabric into 4. See, I folded it into 4, and then from this pointed edge, what I'm going to do is that I'll be inserting her shoulder measurement, and the shoulder measurement I'm working with is 15 inches. So I'll be dividing the 15 inches into 2. I have 7.5 inches. Okay, so the 7.5 inches, I'll actually be placing it there to mark it, but I will not be marking it exactly at 7.5 inches. I'll add extra half an inch to it, making it 8 inches. The half an inch is actually for my sewing allowance, so I'll just place it there. And then before I even insert it, I'll mark a straight line there to mark as my shoulder line. So I'll just draw a straight line. So that's where all my measurements are going to start from. And then, so what I'll be doing next is to be marking my shoulder measurement. You know, it's 7.5 inches plus half an inch, which is 8 inches for sewing allowance. So that's it. And the next thing is to be pinning everything. I'll just pin this side so that by the time I mark the full length of this dress, it will not actually move. So I'll be pinning it to mark the full length of this dress to cut the downside. So I'm actually going to be inserting the full length of this dress, and I'll be starting it from my shoulder line, that marked shoulder point there. I'll start the measurement from there to mark the full length of the dress I'm working with. And the full length I'm working with is 40 inches. It's 40 inches. Okay, but I'll not be marking exactly at that 40 inches. I'll be adding extra allowance for sewing at the upper side and also for folding at the downside. So I'll just go ahead and place my tape from the shoulder point there, and then I'll take it all the way down to where the length I'm working with is. And I actually want to show you, see, it's actually starting from that shoulder point, and then I'll take it all the way down because the table I'm working on is not actually that wide, so I want to place it in such a way that you will like see everything clearly. Okay, so I will just mark my 40 inches there. See my 40 inches, but I will not be marking it exactly at that 40 inches because I need extra allowance for folding allowance with the downside and also for the sewing allowance for the downside. So I will just mark the 41 inches round to get a round circle. So that's just basically what I'm doing, marking the 41 inches round to get a circle. So I'll be placing it from the shoulder line and mark it around in order to get a circle. Alright, so I will just connect all my points together from this other end. And so I was actually lucky enough to get exactly the length I wanted, the 41 inches I wanted. But if you are working on the length that is more than 41 inches, you might need 3.5 or even 4 inches depending on your size. Okay, so I'll just connect all my points together to the other end. And then the next thing I'll be doing is to be cutting everything out. So guys, what I'll be doing next is to be marking my neckline, and the width I'm working with is 2.5 inches. So I'll mark it there, and then the depth is actually 3 inches for the front part. I'll mark 3 inches for the front depth, and then 1.5 inches for the back depth. So I'll mark it there, and then also mark the 1.5 inches for the back depth. So what I'll be doing is to be carving all the points together to meet the width. From this side, I'll carve the front depth and then the back depth to meet this side. So I actually went down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope, and then I'll be connecting it with my ruler to meet that 1 inch. I'll connecting the upper side to the downside to meet the 1 inch that I marked down for the shoulder slope. And then the next thing I'm actually going to be doing is to be inserting my armhole. And my armhole is actually my shoulder measurement divided by 2, and the one I'm working with is 7.5 inches. Our shoulder is 15 divided by 2 is 7.5. So I'll mark 7.5 there, and then use my ruler to draw the line to meet the shoulder slope that I marked for the upper side. And I'll also be dividing the 7.5 inches by 2. I'll fold my tape like that and get the midpoint. I'll be getting the midpoint of my armhole. I'll mark it there, and then also be marking half an inch in. I'll mark half an inch in from that midpoint, and then I'll be connecting from that shoulder slope to the half an inch that I marked, and then I'll carve it to my chest point. So that's what I'm basically going to do right now. I'll be carving it like that from the shoulder slope to the half an inch that I marked in, and then to my chest point. So guys, that's basically it for the measurement. Okay, so in case if you are wondering whether my bust measurement is needed, it's actually not needed because the gown is actually a maxi gown and it's really going to be free at the upper side. Okay, so guys, what I'll be doing next is to be cutting everything out from my armhole to my neck depth. I'll be cutting the back depth first, then I will remove and then cut the front depth, because I don't want to cut. If I cut the front depth, I will basically cut it the same. Okay, so I'll cut the back depth first, and then I'll follow to my shoulder slope like that, and then to my armhole. So guys, the next thing I'll be doing is to be opening this side. This other side that is not open, I'll just go ahead and open it up. And for this front neck depth, I'll be opening this up, and then I'll take off the back one. I'll take off this back piece and then neatly arrange this front piece to be able to cut off my front neckline. So I'm done doing that. So as you can see, the back neckline and also the front neckline. So you see. So the next thing I'm actually going to do is I'll be removing these pins that I actually used to hold the side of this dress. So I'll remove it and then remove my back piece, because I'll be creating an opening for the back piece because there is no zip allowance at the back. So I'll be marking from that neck depth. I'll be marking down by 5 inches, and then I'll be creating an opening from there. So I'll be creating an opening from there, from that marked 5 inches, from my neck depth to the marked 5 inches. Okay, and I'll actually be fixing a button at the back of that turtleneck, so I don't actually need a zip allowance at the back. So I will just go ahead and open everything now. So you see how everything looks like now. You see how full the dress is already. See how wide and full the circle is. So the next thing I'll be doing is to be cutting my sleeve, and then I'll be using this remaining fabric to cut my sleeve. Okay, so I'll neatly arrange it and then mark a line a point there. That's actually going to be my starting point, and I actually folded it in 90 degree, okay, so that it will like be full. I want the downside to be full, and I have a total length there of 17.5, and then the sleeve length I'm working with is 16 inches. So by the time I fold the downside for my band and then hold the upper side by half an inch, I will have 16 inches exactly. So I will just go ahead and mark a round circle from there. I'll mark a circle around the sleeve. So for this upper side, I'll just go ahead and insert my basic sleeve. I'll just cut my basic sleeve, okay, that's just basically what I'm doing now. So I'm just confirming to get my armhole with extra inches for my sewing allowance. So I'll just go ahead and cut out everything now. But for this side, this sleeve is actually not going to be a fitted sleeve, so I'll just take it straight and then cut down everything, and then the downside as well. I'll actually be fixing an elastic band for the downside, okay, so by the time I fix it, the sleeve will actually have a puff effect for the downside. So guys, I actually used the other side of the sleeve to place as a template to cut the second side of the sleeve. So I'm just notching the midpoint there. So see how wide the sleeve is. You see how wide it is, right? So by the time I like fold in and then fix my elastic band, it will actually gather to form that puff effect. So guys, to sew this back piece, I actually use this small piece of fabric and I actually turn it to the wrong side. I actually place the right sides facing each other and then turn it to the wrong side. So I will neatly fold it in like that, and then I will use my hemming gum to hem it down, or you can actually sew it if you want to. So guys, I'm done doing that. As you can see how neat everything is now. I actually turn it and then folded it inside and then hem it down with my hemming gum, okay. So I'm just trimming this excess that I have for the upper side. So guys, the next thing I'm actually going to be doing is to be sewing the shoulder line, okay. So the right sides are actually facing each other, so I will place it with the right sides facing each other like that, and then I'll take it to my sewing machine and stitch the shoulder line. I'll be sewing half an inch from the shoulder line, both from the left and the right hand side of the dress. So guys, I'm actually done doing that. As you can see, I took it to my sewing machine to sew half an inch each from both sides, as you can see. So the next thing I'm actually going to be doing is to be measuring my neckline. I'll be measuring the round neckline starting from the back to the front. I'll just mark it around to know the inches that I have there. So you can actually adjust the neckline if you have something that is less or even more, okay. So I will just go ahead and measure the round neckline that I have here. So what I have here is 16.5 inches, and the neckline I'm actually working with is 16 inches, which is actually still okay for me. So I've gone ahead to fold my gum stay into two, because I'll be drafting it on this gum stay first before I'll transfer it to my fabric. Now I'll go ahead and mark this straight line there, which is going to serve as my starting point. So guys, I'll actually be dividing the 16.5 inches that I had. I'll divide it into two. Just fold my tape like that and divide it, and then the inches that I have is 8.25. I have 8.25 there, so I'll just place it on the gum stay and mark the 8.25 there, because the gum stay is actually folded into two. So I'll be dividing the 16.5 inches by 2. So, and I'll still be dividing the 8.25 by 2 again to get the midpoint. So I actually got about 4.1 there about. So I'll just go ahead and place it there and mark it there. I'll mark it there. And then the next thing I'm actually going to be doing is that I'll be marking how wide I want the collar to be. So I actually want the width to be 1.5 inch, so I'll just mark it there and mark it with my pen. I'll still mark the 1.5 there and then connect it to meet that 4.1 inch that I marked. Actually divided the 8.25 into 2, so I'll just mark it there and then connect a straight line. So for this other side, I'll be marking 1.5 inch upward. I'll place it from that starting point. I'll mark 1.5 inch. I'll just mark the point there and then draw a straight line to meet the downside, and I'll still be marking 1.5 upward, because the 1.5 that I'm marking for the second time is actually going to be the width of my collar. Okay, so I'll mark it there. So I'll actually be curving everything now. I'll be curving everything to give me that curved effect for the collar. So I'll be curving from the 1.5 inch that I marked upward. I'll curve it down and I also curve the other side as well. So you see, I went up by 1.5 inch and I still went up again by 1.5 inch. Okay, so that's actually what I'm actually going to do now. I'll actually curve the down side first. So for this upper side, before I will curve it, I'll be confirming my 1.5, because I don't just want to curve it and then another side is bigger than another. Okay, so I will just confirm the 1.5 round till I will meet the midpoint where I marked the 4.1 inch. Okay, so I will just confirm it, mark the 1.5 like that, and then I'll be curving it. So you see, it's actually following the shape. It's actually coming down itself as I'm taking the measurement. So you see how the shape of the collar is. It's actually not straight, it's curvy a bit. So for this other side, I'm actually going in by half an inch. I'll be going up by half an inch and then I'll connect it straight to meet the downside. So you see how the shape of the collar is. It actually came out very nice and it's going to be well balanced. So I'll actually go ahead and cut off everything now. So you see how the end result is. It's actually curved like that. See how the shape is really nice. So I've actually gone ahead to place this on my fabric and I iron it on my fabric, and I left about half an inch from both sides. So I'll actually be folding half an inch from this side that have the gum stay, and then the downside I'll be sewing it on my fabric. You see, I also stitched the upper side as well, and I left half an inch from the side as well to be able to fold in and fix my loop. So the next thing I'm actually going to do is I will take it and iron it, neatly iron it, and then fold it in with my iron. As you can see how neat everything is becoming. I took it and I ironed the side as well, folded it in, and then I left the half an inch for the downside, because that's the inch I'm actually going to use to sew on my actual fabric. So I marked the midpoint of the collar, and I'm also placing my flare gown and I'll mark the midpoint as well. So I'll place it there. I'll take the right side facing the wrong side. The right side is actually going to face the wrong side, and I'll sew it, take it to my sewing machine, sew it, and then flip it to the right side, and also sew at the edge as well. So guys, I'm actually done fixing it, but as you can see, it's actually way smaller than what I drafted. It's even less than an inch. Okay, so when I finished fixing it, I discovered that it was way bigger and I didn't like the way it was looking, so I still folded it in again. But in case if you want it to be that big, you just leave it. But if you don't want it, you can even correct it at the initial stage. Okay, when you're drafting it, you can make it to be 1 inch or 1.2 depending on how small you want it to be. And I also sew a small rope that I used as my loop for this other side. So I will just fix my button to be able to hook everything together. And for the sleeves, I also folded it in and then fixed my elastic band for both of the sleeves. You see? So guys, the next thing I'm actually going to do is I'll be sewing the sides of this dress. I'll mark the armhole and then sew it till down. Then I'll do the same thing to the other side as well. And then I'll also sew my sleeves. I'll sew my sleeves and then take it to my sewing machine to fix it on the dress. So guys, after sewing the sides of this dress and also the sleeve, I'll just place the right sides facing each other like this, take it to my sewing machine and sew, and do the same thing to the other side. So guys, I'm done doing that. I'm done fixing the sleeve on the dress. As you can see how everything is now. So you see how small the neckline is, but if you actually want it to be that big, the collar to be big, you actually leave it the way I drafted it. Okay, so see how everything turned out to be now. I also fixed my button and I hooked the loop on it as well. So I also intend to fold the downside of this dress. So you see, I actually folded it in by 2 and I sew it around. So the next thing to do is to neatly iron the dress. And so guys, for this rope, I actually made a rope of about 1.5 inch wide, and then the length is actually 52 inches long, so it can actually be longer or shorter depending on what you actually prefer. Okay, so mine is 1.5 inches wide and 52 inches long. So by the time I tie the rope, it will fold and come together like that. So thank you guys for watching the video until the end. Please like the video if you find it helpful, and also don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.